Welcome in, everybody, to another week of UFL Weekly, where we kind of just sit here and chat a little bit about the UFL Weekly. I'm Kyle Krajewski, joined by this lovely sir, Zach Cole. We are recording this on Thursday, coming out on Friday, and then Saturday, we've got UFL football kicking off. So you're listening to this on Friday, March 29th. Tomorrow's the big day. Tomorrow is UFL kickoff. And if you're listening to this anytime later than that, sorry, but it's kickoff. But before we begin the day, Zach, how are you, my man?
I'm doing very well. It's kind of incredible that the weekend we've been talking about for seemingly so many weeks now is finally here. It's in front of us, and I'm excited to break down these teams and talk about it.
Yes. So today, what we've got, we're going to basically do which team to root for, kind of go through a quick team outline, team by team within the UFL, and basically give some highlights, kind of give a season preview on each team. So if you're kind of coming into the UFL without a team to root for, this can kind of help you out. Or if you're coming from the USFL or XFL and your team no longer exists, this will kind of help you get an understanding of who you can root for, who you want to root for this season if you haven't picked your team yet. So we'll do that. And then at the end of the show, we'll do our week one picks, just kind of highlighting the current game lines on DraftKings and just do quick what we think the line's going to wind up being, or like basically do quick week one picks, do some chat about that. And then for next week, you can listen to our week one review and then week two preview. So we'll be doing that as the season goes on, a weekly recap and a weekly preview. But for now, let's get into team previews. Who to root for, what kind of team outlines. We're going to be going in the order of, I guess, most likely to win the UFL championship, just strictly based off of current odds. So this is not in any alphabetical order. This is based on outcome of winning. So kicking us off, we have the St. Louis Battlehawks. First off, football's back in St. Louis. It has been for a few years now with the spring football, but just nice to see football in St. Louis. Just to highlight here, head coach Anthony Becht, love that man. He is passionate about this team.
Absolutely.
Looking at last year in the XFL, this was the best offense in the XFL. They had the highest pass rate when they were trailing, and were top in the league in passing efficiency, all thanks to AJ McCarron, reigning XFL MVP. He just led the league in passing touchdowns, completion percentage, passer rating. This guy was the dude. He was just so dominant at quarterback, and it was, so easy to tell that it was his title as MVP to lose. But a household name kind of for spring football, and AJ McCarron here.
Yeah, and I think that AJ McCarron is really kind of the glue to this team. And I don't want to speak too preemptively here without having seen the USFL half as much as we have, but I think that AJ McCarron in the XFL portion of the UFL is the most game leading quarterback that we see on any of these rosters.
Yeah.
He's the guy that can really kind of control a game. I don't want to call him a game manager because I think he has the takeover gene where he can throw for as many yards as they need him to throw for, but he's also the best at leading his team, I think. And I think that he is going to continue to do that at a high rate, much like we saw last year. And that's obviously the reason why they're the odds on favorite to win the the UFL this season.
Yeah, and then kind of going through what else we have here. Zach and I were talking a little bit earlier today that this Battlehawks team may have the best wide receiver. I think by far has the best wide receiver room, and I've seen some people even say this is the best group of receivers maybe spring football has seen.
Mm-hmm.
Just to highlight, there are four guys here that can really just honestly probably be top 1 or 2 receivers on other teams. But right now we've got Hakeem Butler and Jacquor Pearson. Pearson is currently on IR and will miss a few weeks here to start the season. But looking at last year in the XFL, these were the 2 best wide receivers in the league. They were leading the league in receivers, or leading the league in receiving yards, and then Butler led the league in touchdowns. These were 2 teams. I mean, Butler was on the Battlehawks last season, already has his rapport with McCarron, and Pearson's coming from the Sea Dragons, and both had dominant seasons. So I'm hoping Jacquor makes his way back healthily and quickly. But Hakeem Butler, the clear number 1 wide receiver here in this room for now. And then they've got Darius Shepard and Blake Jackson, who were last year in the XFL 4th and 5th in receptions in 2023. And then Darius Shepard tied 2nd in touchdowns, right behind Hakeem Butler. Shepard's staying from the Battlehawks from last year, while Blake Jackson also from the Sea Dragons. So these were 2 receivers kind of following in here as the wide receiver, currently 2 and 3 on this team, and looking to just continue what they were doing last year. Something fun. They have home field advantage for the championship game. The championship game will be held in St. Louis, so if they make it there, they've got clear home field advantage. And from what we've seen in previous years here in spring football in St. Louis, this crowd shows up. So that's huge. And then, quite honestly, they are our pick for the best offense in the league. This wide receiver room is bonkers.
Yeah, Kyle, and one other guy I don't want to short by any stretch. Dog sneezing, sorry. And that I don't want to short by any other stretch is Marcel Aitman, who's also still on the roster from last year. He came in right around the 20th in the league in the XFL last season in receiving yards. So he's a more than capable threat as well. And that might help kind of tide this offense over until they get some guys back off of IR, like you mentioned with Pearson. So, if they can kind of just bridge that gap, I don't see how this offense takes any step back. This is just a great offense overall.
Yeah, it's crazy. Looks really good on paper, and I'm really hoping it looks that way in person on the field.
Absolutely. And moving into number 2 here, with our next most likely team to win the UFL, we're hopping over to the opposite division. We're going to the USFL for this one, and it's the Birmingham Stallions, who are a team that is not necessarily shy to success. They won the most recent iteration of the USFL in 2023. They bring in a
Back-to-back
great
champions.
coach, back-to-back champions in 2022. They bring in a great coach in Skip Holtz, who came from college, has tons of coaching experience. I know he was at Louisiana Tech. He was just kind of all over the place, and he's also the son of Lou Holtz, who's a huge name in the college football world, football industry. He had a lot of success with Notre Dame, so it kind of runs in the family. But they are going, like we said, for 3 straight championships here, and they actually haven't lost a postseason game in 4 tries. Coach Skip Holtz hasn't. So winning the USFL back-to-back years gave them obviously a semifinal win, then a championship win, semifinal win, championship win. So this team has plenty of playoff experience. Do you think that they're kind of queued up to be in this championship matchup here?
Yeah, I mean, considering the talent that they were able to keep, along with just the experience, I mean, back-to-back champions is crazy to consider. But I don't see how this team doesn't come into this league not expecting the same results. They're coming in with that same fire, that same, I guess, goal of coming out on top with the trophy in hand. If not in the UFL entirely, but definitely in the USFL division.
Yeah, and they're going to try to do so under one of 2 quarterbacks. We don't necessarily have a clear starter. We kind of have an expected starter, and that is Matt Corral, the quarterback from Ole Miss. So we're kind of still up in the air because they also have quarterback. I don't know if it's Jamar or Jamar Smith, who played for the Stallions last year and was actually kind of benched in the season. And he so might get back in there as the starter, but that's yet to be seen. And outside of that, they also have some studs on defense. They've got a great linebacker by the name of Scooby Wright, which could go on the all league name list right there, Kyle. But they have Jace Sternberger and Deion Kane and Amari Rogers, who should kind of give some decent targets downfield in this passing attack. So I think that this is the most talented roster in the USFL division. But it's going to be yet to be seen how they fit into the overall picture of the UFL this season.
Yeah, I think the name for me that stands out there is Jace Sternberger. The guy led the USFL in touchdowns last season with 7, and came in, I think, looking at 4th in receiving yards. Dude has a good spring football portfolio, and quite honestly, I don't see that slowing down. He's been vocal on social just about how excited he is about spring football, trying to get as many guys he knows in the NFL over into the league, to no avail. But still, he loves spring football, and spring football loves him back, and he's killing it.
Absolutely. I hit the nail on the head. I'm excited to see them play because obviously, Kyle, it's no shock. We were more focused on XFL last season. So to really kind of get to analyze these teams a little bit more closely, a little bit more in depth this season is going to be fun.
Yeah, for sure. So that comes with a warning to you coming into our podcast from the USFL. If we mistake any of these stats or miss anybody, please let us know. We're here to learn. We're not here to leave out any USFL knowledge. We are just coming in with strict XFL knowledge. So feel free, call us out in the comments. Please be nice about it, because I'm just letting you know we want to be friends. We are here for the UFL. We just have XFL specific knowledge previously, but we're learning as much as we can coming into the season. We're going to know as much as we can moving forward.
Well put. Well put.
Moving forward, the team with the 3rd best odds to win the championship back in the XFL division is my team, the DC Defenders. Last year, they had the best record in the XFL season, in the XFL League, 2023. They had an insanely strong offensive performance last year. They are a run-first offense with a potential for more pass-heavy plays we'll see this year, I think, especially with Abram Smith being down. But just looking at their team stats last year, they had over 40 rushing yards per game, more than the next team, and scored 49 more points than the next team. So this team was scoring and scoring on the ground. Losing Abram Smith, though, their top running back and arguably the best skill player in the UFL, to an ACL tear just a few weeks ago, is going to be really tough to overcome for this team. They're losing their best player. But I think with Jordan Ta'amu at quarterback, coming in for his 3rd consecutive spring football season, 4th total. So he played in 2020 for the St. Louis Battlehawks, 2022 with the Tampa Bay Bandits and the USFL, last year for the Defenders, and back this year with the Defenders. So 4th year in spring football, he's coming in with that spring football experience, and I think he's coming in ready to explode again. This defense is led by good old Greg Williams. Had some experience in the NFL, but this defensive secondary is bonkers. We have 2 former first-round picks in DeAndre Baker and Garyon Conley at cornerback, and then all XFL selection cornerback Michael Joseph, and then NFL vet DJ Swearinger at safety. So this defensive secondary stacked with experience. They are coming in hot and ready again. And then fun thing here is the beer snake. If you are new to the XFL and the DC Defenders, tune into their games, because you're going to see in that crowd a beautiful old beer snake, which is the crowd basically getting together, getting all their beer cups, and just making one long winding snake. And it is beautiful. So make sure you tune into that game, because that crowd gets into it with that beer snake, and it is beautiful. So overall, we've got this run heavy offense that scores. They've got a few big pass plays. Loved seeing that last year, and this experienced defense coming in for DC.
Yeah, I think the key here with this team, ironically enough, with their team name, is their defense, believe it or not. I think that
Yeah,
this defense is really going to kind of prop up this offense until it finds its identity without Abram Smith, because we don't necessarily know. There's some guys there, don't get me wrong. We mentioned
for sure.
in the past couple episodes some of their depth, but um, uh, there's some depth, and it's going to take a little while for them to figure out who their next go-to guy is. But you mentioned they have they have three great corners that they're bringing in, a couple with NFL experience, one who was an all XFL selection last year, and then an NFL vet at safety with Swearinger. So like it really is, I think, a solid defense top to bottom that is going to give them success early. And I also just wanted to mention, we're going to get into another team in a little bit, but it's funny. There's a couple coaches in this league that came from Sean Payton's coaching tree, and Greg Williams is one of them. So Sean Payton is creating bounty for the for spring football. Oh, no pun intended with the bounty
No
there.
pun. Sure,
Sorry, Greg
sure.
Williams. No pun intended. Our fourth team, meaning our fourth most likely to win the UFL season, is going to be the Arlington Renegades, which is kind of interesting because they were a team last year that won the XFL. So you would
Hmm.
expect, like the Stallions, they would probably have pretty good odds to win this upcoming season's iteration of spring football. But as you can see, they are right in the middle of the pack. They're kind of in that dangerous contender area where they're not necessarily a favorite, but they're going to be led by Coach Bob Stoops, who, like we talked about, has championship experience from coaching them last year. Their offense is kind of right back where it was, being led by Luis Perez again, who we saw kind of go on a heater at the end of the season where he just kind of took over the league, had a couple huge passing games. But they're going to hand the ball off to Davion Smith, who's in the backfield and actually tied for the XFL lead last year with the most rushing touchdowns. And then wide receiver Isaiah Winstead is someone to kind of keep an eye out moving forward this season as a top pass catcher for Perez. So on the other side of the ball, their defense was pretty good last year. They were one of those teams that I remember talking about last season. Them and the Brahmas used to get in like these single digit matchup battles where they would
Oh my
lose like
gosh.
9-7 or something like that. It was nuts. But so their defense is definitely top tier. They were second best in yards per game last season, which is a great stat. Now I know there's a lot of moving pieces, but I think they're still going to look to keep their defense as probably their top identity. And then we can't forget the special team god himself, Marquette King at punter, who is going to be looking to flip the field for them and kind of keep things right where they need it to be in terms of field position. So overall, this team is pretty solid. And like we mentioned, or like I just mentioned, they do have championship experience and a good defense. So any team with those two qualities is going to be dangerous coming into the season. So in kind of a nutshell, I would say Arlington is a team to look out for to overachieve where they're currently kind of viewed by Vegas.
Yeah, the Renegades were one of those teams that just somehow figured out how to win a championship at the right time. It was crazy. I remember you and I were just annoyed at the Renegades because they just had kept having those yeah, like you said, the single digit games.
Couldn't figure it out. Yeah.
And then honestly, Luis Perez just came in and things clicked late in the season, especially right at playoff time. And it clearly worked. They won the championship. So I think this is one of those teams to be sneakily prepared for and like a hot streak at some point this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to watch them. They're definitely one of the teams that I'll kind of be keeping my eye on.
Next, with next best odds to win the championship in fifth, the Houston Roughnecks, formerly Houston Gamblers, in the USFL division. We've got head coach Curtis Johnson, previously coached the Gamblers, but stuck around in Houston because of the whole Gamblers became the Roughnecks, but then into the USFL division. And like Zach said, spent some time under Sean Payton. Just a crazy coaching tree here in the good old UFL. Last year the Gamblers went 5-5 in 2023, looking for a much better kind of start in season this year. Some notable players. We've got Jarrett Garantano at starting quarterback. And Zach, you have a note here for running back Mark Thompson, who, by the way, is still questionable to play week 1, but I need to hear what this note is here.
Yeah, it's just kind of a stupid little story, but I actually Mark Thompson, a tweet came across my suggested feed, and he was like, "I'm selling Florida gear," so he went and played at the University of Florida. So I DM'd him and I said, "Hey, I have a kid. For people who don't know, I coach football. I have a kid on my team who loves the University of Florida. I'm like, can I potentially buy something off of you?" And he got back to me and he was very gracious about the whole exchange and everything. And it was just kind of cool to see his name pop up down the road. I knew he had played in spring football before, but I wasn't sure if he was going to be back in there this season. And doing our pre-show research, come to find out he's on the Roughnecks roster, and I'm hoping I could see him out there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's I keep seeing a lot because right now I think the little bit of the fantasy community is upset that the UFL isn't very, I guess, clear on what starting rosters look like or injury reports
Hmm.
for the upcoming week. But right now, I think Mark Thompson is genuinely a 50-50 on if he plays this week 1, but he's definitely a guy to highlight. I, for some reason, can't get stats from last year. It's not loading. All right. But looking at the defense, which from everything I'm seeing is going to be the focal point for the Roughnecks this season, um, they have what is essentially seen as the best defensive line. People just keep highlighting that this offensive, or sorry, not offensive line, this defensive line could be the most dangerous in the league this year, and I think that's going to kind of be the focal point for this Roughnecks team. Um, but overall, we could see a sneaky good team here, heavily relying on defense, and this offense could also be kind of sneakily good, especially if Zach's Mark Thompson kind of kicks off.
Yeah, I'm pulling for you, Mark. Moving on, Kyle. We are going to the sixth team here in the UFL championship odds, and that's the Memphis Showboats, who I will say, Kyle, I haven't announced my official team yet, but I love the Memphis Showboats jerseys. I love the navy blue and yellow that they have going on. I'm really vibing with it.
I love it, but I have to chime in here because I knew I was looking at it for a reason. Mark Thompson was second in the USFL in rushing yards, and what is this? 4 total touchdowns more than the next guy in rushing.
Oh
So
wow.
Mark Thompson's not a guy to mess with on the ground. I knew we were highlighting him for a reason. I didn't have those stats readily available, but it's one of those where I'm just like, I have this, and the site's not loading correctly. So Mark Thompson, guy to look for on the Roughnecks. Probably now with Abram Smith out, potentially one of the better running backs in the league.
Mhm.
So keep an eye out for
Overall.
that. And now tell me more about this Showboat, Zach. You kind of lean in one way.
Yeah, I might be. I don't know. And I kind of I like to start from the bottom, you know. I like to see a team rise up. I I was a Carolina Panthers fan. I think I still have to be, and I know, believe me, I know about rising up from the ashes. So, but anyway, let's talk more about the Memphis Showboats. Their coach is John DiFilippo, who actually was the Breakers coach when they were the New Orleans Breakers in the USFL, and he went 7-3 with them. So, and now he's the head coach of the Showboats. He's been in the NFL. He's coached with the Browns. He's coached with the Vikings, the Jaguars. He's kind of been around. So definitely has some experience in terms of coaching. And he's going to have a lot of experience coming in as well at the quarterback position, where Case Cookus, who it's a fantastic name, is going to be his starting quarterback this year. Cookus was very, very good last season for the Philadelphia Stars and actually took them to the USFL championship where they lost by 3 to the Stallions, who we see are one of the best teams,
Yep.
or are supposed to be one of the best teams this season. So that says a lot in terms of Cookus being a player to watch this season. Their running back is Darius Victor, who we mentioned Mark Thompson. There was another name I don't recall off the top of my head who was second in rushing, but he was the USFL's third leading rusher
Wes
in
Hills.
2023. What's that? Go ahead. Sorry.
West Hills was up there
Okay.
for the
But
UFL.
Victor was the third leading rusher in the 2023 USFL with the New Jersey Generals. Obviously, with the expansion draft, he's now been placed on the Showboats. But they also have Jonathan Adams and Sage Surratt. Surratt played in the NFL a little bit, so that's a name that might be familiar with some people in terms of their receiving core. And then on defense, they have Vontae Diggs, who is also an NFL experienced guy and a notable name at linebacker who should kind of help shore up this defense. So overall, my kind of breakdown of the team was I don't think they're going to be incredible in year one. Now, don't get me wrong. They have a very experienced quarterback who could kind of improve on that overall prediction of them not being great. We've seen with Luis Perret as a quarterback can
Mhm.
change a whole entire offense. But overall, I have them as not being too great in year one, but they do have room to surprise.
Next team here, seventh in projected and expected odds to win the championship. We've got the Michigan Panthers. My vote, honestly, for best logo and color scheme. I think the blue is a
Mm-hmm.
great touch to the maroon and gold. Um, except I think the only logo that would beat it for me is the Renegades alternative. I think that guy's sick.
Yes, the
But
Bandit, right?
yeah. All right, on to the Panthers though. We've got head coach Mike Nolan. He was actually the head coach for the 49ers
Mm-hmm.
in the oh five to '08 seasons there. He was a not a very successful one, 1837, but we all make our way somewhere. We've got quarterback EJ Perry here at quarterback. And then we talked about running backs a little bit before. Wes Hills here is the running back, leading rusher in the USFL last season. So I may have jumped the gun here about Mark Thompson potentially being the better running back, but who knows? I think we're going to see a lot of great running back play in the USFL division that we saw last year in the USFL. And again, guys, please correct me if I'm wrong anywhere here. I'm genuinely, I've only seen and read as much as I could for the USFL, but the Michigan Panthers, their top defensive players, Frank Ginda, Jared Fernandez, and Breland Speaks. He led the league last year in sacks with 9. They Things look very mixed here in Michigan for offensive play, but I will say again, love this color scheme.
If they've got one thing going for them, it's the jerseys and the color scheme and the logos.
Give it to me.
Yeah, I think that again, this is a team where maybe they're not expecting the most success in week one. That's okay. I'm sorry, not week one, season one. That's okay. This is hopefully going to be a now continuing league where we see this year in, year out, and they can build from where they are. So I think this season they have named EJ Perry to be their guy already. Let's roll with him. Let's see what we can get out of a quarterback and see if we got a guy who can really kind of help build this foundation for this team.
They've also got Trey Quinn here at wide receiver, who for me is just like a Cowboys Thanksgiving legend. Was it Cowboys or am I thinking of the Commanders? Either
It's
way,
Commanders, I believe. He was Commanders.
yeah, I think he was the guy that did the Michael Scott dance that we see circulate every Thanksgiving.
I think so. Yes.
Um, Either way, Trey Quinn had a great performance in the playoffs last year in a loss, but had a great game.
Yeah, I think that's really I think that's all we have to add there. So let's move on to our last team, and kind of interestingly enough, and Kyle and I were talking about this a little bit before we started on the show here. The Brahmas come in at the worst odds in the league to win the UFL, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the worst team, which is kind of an interesting aspect to think about. It's more so that they are in the XFL division, which seems to be the stronger division of the two, and they have a lower chance to win the XFL division than any of the USFL teams do to win their division. So that's why it's less likely essentially that they will make playoffs, meaning that they are
Yeah,
less likely to win the championship, the least likely
yeah.
out of the whole league.
The way I put it, or the way I would put it, is that this Brahmas team may be one of the most exciting teams. Just looking through what they've got, but their odds of making it to the championship having to beat out either the Battlehawks or the Defenders, and then
Mhm.
even the Renegades is just that much harder for them to accomplish than to be all time great.
Yeah, and this is a team that's coming in with some good experience on their coaching staff. They're bringing Wade Phillips over from Houston. Shoot, I'm going to forget his Heinz Ward was the Brahmas coach last year. He's now out, and Wade Phillips is in. He brought his offensive coordinator, who did some creative things with the Roughnecks last year. If you guys remember, the Roughnecks started, I want to say 6-0 or something along those lines. So they were a very good team to start off the season, and their offense was just on fire. They do have a couple talented receivers, receiving threats. They have John Trey Kirkland and Cody Latimer. I believe Latimer is actually listed as a tight end, and actually kind of played that hybrid tight end receiver role with the Orlando Guardians last year, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. And they're going to be catching the ball from Chase Garbers, who will be playing quarterback. But his kind of spiel is that he's a dual threat quarterback, which is going to be exciting. We'll be looking forward to that to see how they can get creative with that offense between Kirkland, Latimer, and the rushing aspect of Chase Garbers.
I need to chime in here before we move on from this offense and really express to you guys how great John Trey Kirkland was last year before his injury.
Yes.
So much so that I've got this bad boy. This man, look at him. Look at this.
That's
Good old
beautiful.
Roughnecks. He was, as he was playing, the first few weeks when he was playing, genuinely on pace to be the XFL MVP.
Hmm.
And then dang injuries got him. But hoping he's back to his caliber this season. And if he is, the combination of him and Latimer is going to be dangerous.
Well, and that's probably what helped lead to them being, I mentioned 6-0, 5-0, 6-0, whatever it was to start the season last year, where we weren't sure if this team was ever going to lose. They were incredible and they were killing teams. They were beating teams by 30, 35 points. So, yeah, getting Kirkland back is huge. And that's such a good thing for this offense. And I think with AJ Smith, who already got to work with him a little bit last year, should
Yeah.
just kind of, lend to this being another explosive offense. So on the other side of the ball, though, Wade Phillips is a defensive guy, so they're going to have a good defense. And it was one of the top ranked defenses in the XFL in 2023. They had the second fewest points per game, and ahead of the Brahmas, who we talked about. I'm sorry, the Renegades, who we talked about. They had the fewest yards per game in 2023 as well. So one last kind of aspect to add here is that destroying Donald De La Haye. Did I get that right? I think that's
Yep.
his
Yep.
full
You
name,
got it.
right? Is this team's kicker? He beat out a couple other guys in what might be the first kicker competition I've ever really heard of. But that was kind of cool to see. So that will definitely bring a couple eyes to this team and hopefully should lend to some public publicity or some positive publicity around the UFL in general.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting addition here. I'm actually
Hmm.
looking forward to how that pans out.
It should be cool. And it could, if he keeps sticking with the YouTube aspect or the content creator aspect, it could give us some cool insights into the league too.
Yeah, actually, I wish I had a list of them, but there's actually a few players in the UFL currently that are kind of doing like something similar, where it's just like,
Hmm.
oh, like follow my journey here in the UFL. Look at what the day looks like for a UFL player. It's really cool. I try to on Twitter or X. I try to retweet, or repost those as much as I can, just because it's really cool. It's really awesome to see kind of like these days in the life, this journey that these guys are all kind of joined in and doing
Right.
together.
Yeah,
But Destroying kind of has that larger platform of doing so.
for sure. All right, let's
But,
move on to the fun part here. I think we've gotten through all our recaps, right?
yep. So that was each team. Just kind of a quick highlight how they're looking this year. And again, apologies USFL fans if we were a little light in the USFL. Coming from the XFL, but we're here, UFL moving forward. Let's move on to our weekly picks. We've got 4 games this weekend, Zach. Zach, we've got some spring football on the
That's
horizon. It is
awesome.
like
It
right
really
here. I'm
is.
staring at it. Kicking us off Saturday, March 30th, 1 p.m. We've got two champions Birmingham Stallions facing the Arlington Renegades. The line is currently set at -3.5 in the Stallions' favor, with the over/under set at 42. Let's hear it, Zach. What are your picks?
Well, you're going to have to remind me and remind everyone here. How are we going about our picks?
What we do here, we just kind of do each team or each game. We pick an over, we pick a spread, or pick an over/under, we pick a spread, and then we just kind of keep track week by week how we're doing. Come a little bit of friendly competition here, and
Absolutely.
how we kind of do here. So we're not necessarily giving recommendations on picks. Like if you're throwing money on this, that's not necessarily what we're saying. We're just here saying, oh, this is how I expect this game to go. So back to it. Stallions, Renegades. What are your picks?
Well, I am gonna lean. Maybe I'm putting personal bias in here. I'm gonna lean to the XFL side on this first game, in between the two champions here, and I'm gonna take the Renegades +3.5. I just think that Arlington is going to be a step better. I think they had something click from the end of last season, obviously going on their championship run. And I think that we're going to see a better team than what we kind of remember from the regular season last year. And again, I could be being naive towards the USFL champion, the Birmingham Stallions here, and they could come out and they could play the game of their lives. We don't know. But I'm going to go ahead. I'll take the underdog in this one, which is the Renegades at +3.5. And then for the point total, I'm going to say let's have fun. I'm going to go over 42. I don't really have any basis, any reasoning for this one. So just give me the points. I'll take over 42.
I'm gonna take the opposite too. Give me Birmingham -3.5 and the under 42.
Very interesting.
Next game up, we've got the St. Louis Battlehawks taking on the Michigan Panthers, 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday. The Battlehawks are -6.5 point favorites. Over under also set at 42.
I am going to go ahead and take the Battlehawks -6.5 in this one. We talked about the Panthers a little bit, and they're one of the teams that are not projected to be better in this league. And the Battlehawks are projected to be one of, if not the best team in the league. So, them by a touchdown, or them by a touchdown and a potential 1 point conversion, feels pretty good to me. So I will take that, and I'm going to take the under on this one. I think
Ooh,
that their defense is really going to step up, and I'm envisioning like I don't know, a 24-10 game or something like that, a pretty low scoring affair for the Panthers.
love it. Give me also St. Louis -6.5, but I'm going to take the over. I think St. Louis is just going to be a offensive juggernaut this season. Just score, score, score.
So you're almost thinking along the way of like a 35-point game for them, and then
Like a
just
42-0 game. Yeah.
very interesting. Okay.
No, I think Michigan's going to score, but yeah, I think it's going to be a much more higher scoring game for the Battlehawks. Next up, we've got DC Defenders facing the San Antonio Brahmas Sunday at noon Easter football. Defenders have the favorite -6. Over under set at 44. What you got, boss?
I think I'm going to go ahead and roll with the defenders on this one at -6. I think that they are a superior team that knows their identity right now, and I think that that's going to be the key in this game. And being that they like their rushing attack so much, and we have not seen the Brahmas with a very historic scoring, prolific offense, I should say, I'm going to take the under 44 on this one. So again, to recap, defenders -6, under 44.
I am once again going the opposite. Give me San Antonio +6. I think San Antonio is going to surprise us this year, and we see it week one. And then I'm going to take the over 44.
We're gonna be
We're
it's
going
gonna
to
be a
be
big
so
difference.
different in these.
Yeah.
I love it. Next up, final game of the week, Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern. We've got the Memphis Showboats and the Houston Roughnecks, and a close one here. Showboats have a line of -1 in their favor, over under set at 41.
I'm planting my flag. Let's go Showboats, baby. Give me -1, Showboats -1. Zero rationale behind that pick. I'm just going for it, and uh, I guess we'll go with the over on this one. Let's score some
Love it.
points on Easter Sunday.
I am joining you on both of those. Give
Okay.
me the points. I want points all day Sunday. Give me the
Yes,
Easter
sir.
points. That's all I've asked the Easter Bunny for all year. And give me Memphis -1. I want to see this Showboats team do something.
3 p.m. after you finish your Easter dinner, you're sitting down, you're nice and tired. You can just watch an offensive shootout.
Love it. Have a stomach full of mac and cheese and brunch, and I'm happy. Happy to watch some Showboats and Roughnecks.
That sounds like a plan.
All right, everybody. I think that was quite good enough for the day.
I think so.
Thank you for tuning in. We are UFL Weekly. This was a quick team by team breakdown and a weekly preview for week 1 as
Week
the
one.
UFL finally kicks off. I'm freaking pumped. So again, thank you for tuning in. If you are watching us, you can also listen to us on podcast platforms wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you are listening to us, you can watch us on YouTube, see our beautiful faces, see how excited we are for the season to get started. And man, let's just get to it. Let's get to the weekend. Zach, it's a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for tuning in. And we will see you next week with the week 1 recap, week 2 preview. Let's go. Let's go. I'm
Can't
happy.
wait.
It's
Can't
pumped.
wait.
Easter football, UFL, we're back, baby. Thank you for tuning in. See you next week.
See ya.